Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, simulcasting on the Sparta HQ Network. I'm Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always.
There it goes.
The Ghost of Sparta, a.k.a. Peter, a.k.a. Panayotis. Yasu, my brother, what is going on?
What is going on, Paul? How are you tonight?
I am well. Good weekend. Kind of relaxing weekend. Starting my spring cleaning a little bit early, but I mean late. But get my garage cleaned out and just empty out a lot of stuff and just purging. Remember that purge I started a couple months ago with all my old computer equipment? I had floppy disks and I had old college books and whatnot. Well, that purge is still continuing because I'm finding stuff that I'm realizing that I just don't have a need to hold on to anymore. One of the things I found was I only won one trophy in my whole life.
Really?
And that was I was a scrub on my high school basketball team, and we were in a local tournament, and we won these trophies, these basketball trophies. And so again, I don't think I even played in the game, but everybody, when you win, the team gets trophies. So we all got up. I had my name called. I go up. I walk up. I shake the hand of the presenter. I grab my trophy, and I go back, and then every guy gets called up and everything. And so I found that trophy. And then I realized it's like, why am I holding on to this? Because I didn't really contribute too much to the team. So I said, let me just get rid of it. So it's I am a bit sentimental when it comes to holding on to things, but I'm learning more to get rid of things that are just cluttering up my garage and cluttering my life.
It's funny you said because I actually did some cleaning this week over the week too because I went through my closet and everything. And my lady is having a yard sale on Saturday. So I'm bringing a bunch of my old shit. And if I make some money off that, great. If I don't, I don't. Most of the shit I'm getting rid of my old 90 toys and like my old Ninja Turtles, Batman stuff. Maybe I'll make some money off that shit. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, look, if you're a collector, absolutely. Now, I've never done, in all the years we've been here, we've never done a garage sale. I don't think I have the patience to even set that up. Yes, that was a participation trophy.
Yeah, right.
Listen, I was a late. I didn't play organized sports of any kind until I was 14 years old. And my high school basketball coach, he cut me the first time I went out for the team. That as a junior, he cut me. But I was still on the team. I was basically I carried the clipboard, the chart, so I got to go to all the games and everything. And so he kind of let me a part of the experience. In my senior year, he just said, I can't cut this kid a second time. So he let me on. I got into scrub time. I would score a couple baskets here and there in the game or whatever and be like, yeah, I scored a basket. So, I just wanted to be part of the team. I think that was the biggest thing for me was just being part of something that I never experienced before. I know some of these kids now, you start at 3-4 years old playing organized sports and whatnot, and now with the travel team and the travel baseball and basketball and all these kind of sports or whatever, I just wanted to be a part of something. So for me, I didn't care. All I knew is that my name would be immortalized, certainly with that trophy. But now it's like all these years later, like I said, it really doesn't hold much meaning now. But at the time, it was a pretty big deal because my brother, for example, now he was a high school basketball kind of legend. I mean, my brother's like 5'9.5", and he was dunking basketballs in high school. Played at a local D3 school, which ironically, my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, actually him and my brother were teammates on that team. Never knew each other, but when we hooked up, we found all these family connections and whatnot. So that just kind of let us know that, hey, this is probably a big deal. And so, that was part of the connections that we knew we had. Mm-hmm. So it was a great thing. But my brother, he had all the trophies. I mean, he was, if there was a D League or something like that back in the day, I mean, obviously his height would have been an issue for a lot of teams, but he could have certainly did some things in basketball. That was his love and his passion. And if he would have had the opportunity to play, he would have played almost for nothing. If you got a chance to travel and all that kind of stuff.
I still have most of my trophies from my martial shark career and my medals. The only 3 I don't have, they're actually at my instructor's dojo displayed are my 3 world champions trophies. The damn things are huge. They're like the size of me. Literally, they're humongous. Like I remember trying to carry that thing. That thing was told to me when I was younger.
Yeah.
So those are the only ones I have not have, but everything else I still have on my trophy. I'm not getting rid of those. And one thing I
Yeah.
learned, my instructor always date underneath, so you know what date, because it doesn't say the date on most of his trophies on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a friend of mine who, when I was going through that purge, a friend of mine he's a competitive bodybuilder. He actually earned his pro card later in his career, but he said that he had a whole bunch of bodybuilding trophies and whatnot, and he basically said, "Look, take pictures of them, date them, and then throw them away." And that's what he said. That made the process a little bit easier for me to partner with them, just to take photos. If you want to take videos of them or something like that, if you want to ever have like a collage or this is what I did or whatever, especially with content creators, you could certainly do that. But that was a part of his life that even though he's still very much into fitness, competing, competitive bodybuilding and whatnot, that's just not his life anymore. So he got rid of that. But we want to thank all you guys for coming on tonight. Just make sure when you come in, again, hit the like button, both here and hop on over to Sparta HQ Network. Hit the like button over there. Certainly, we appreciate the support that you give us. As you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen, you see certainly for the Black Man Unfiltered Network, you can certainly drop a Cash App or a Super Chat certainly to the network. Certainly, we appreciate any support that you want to give to us to support this channel. And then also for us individually, anything you want to give to us here, you see our Cash Apps scrolling at the bottom of the screen. But we're going to get into this tonight. This is certainly the gray area. There's very few topics that we don't necessarily want to cover. I mean, we kind of stay away from religion and politics to an extent because that just gets sideways real fast and whatnot. But this is an issue that certainly certainly came when we were kind of brainstorming for shows. And, certainly, we also not only going to deal with this just as an academic, but also we have some personal experience with this that we can certainly talk about on the show. So this isn't just coming from, just wanting to have a conversation, but, to talk about one's personal experiences with this, I think it's important. And also, I want to level set this a bit because the one thing that I'm seeing that's unfortunate in a lot of these spaces is that anytime when you have a sensitive topic like this, a lot of this stuff is about whataboutism. And we're not trying to be about that tonight. We before we even get started with the show, the statistics bear it out overwhelmingly. Women are the victims, the primary victims of DV. And again, I'm going to be also very careful with my language here because of censorship and things of that nature. So I'm going to, as much as I can, unless I'm citing something, I'm going to try to use the acronym so that we don't get flagged for certain things here. But, certainly women are the overwhelming victims when it comes to any kind of these DV type of issues. And we're not trying to minimize that. We're not trying to, again, do a whataboutism about this sort of thing. But just because, certainly women are the overwhelming victims, that does not mean that there aren't male victims out there. And a lot of times men don't necessarily get the space to really talk about that experiences without somebody beating them down for one reason or the other. And a lot of that comes for both men and women. There's still this sort of machismo out there that, will oftentimes prevent men from certainly sharing their stories. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate, this conversation tonight because, certainly for Peter, he's going to be relatively transparent. And we're not talking about anything that hasn't been talked about in other forums. He's been pretty open and transparent in a lot of these platforms, whether it be on Sparta HQ or on the BMU network. He's, certainly shared his experiences. But we want to dedicate a particular show to it. And so this issue of male DV, meaning that men who have been abused, and again, we're also going to level set this. We're going to focus, most of our attention is going to be focused on when women are the perpetrators of violence against men. Because I know you have another community, you have the LGBTQ, and there's so many acronyms there, but you have that community where, certainly where gay men certainly experience that and whatnot. That's not going to be the emphasis of tonight. It's about women's abusing men, and we're also talking about violence. We're not talking about necessarily just the verbal stuff, but certainly, physical violence where women are hitting men. Again, law enforcement, how that's an issue, but really getting down to how we as men feel about these issues, especially when they've happened to us. And so that's kind of the direction that we want to kind of go in here tonight. We want to keep this conversation respectful. We're going to ask that the chat keeps it respectful. And again, we're not pointing fingers at anybody. We're not trying to, again, minimize women. You do have a right, if it's being done to you, report it, do everything that you can to get away from the situation, protect yourself. Same thing I would say to a man. But we cannot just put this stuff in a closet as if it doesn't exist. And so this is a pretty big step for us. I'm already seeing just by who's on live tonight. So this has certainly piqued the attention of quite a few people, as I expected that it would. And we're going to do our best to have a conversation. Again, we're, like we always say, we're not experts in anything. It's me and Peter having a conversation. And Peter's going to share some things that are personal to Peter. And he has a right to that. But we're not experts. We don't have solutions. We don't have whatever. We'll offer our opinions. You may agree with our opinions or not. But we want to have this conversation. And just if me and Peter were meeting one-on-one in a coffee shop somewhere to talk about this or whatever, we're kind of going to have that same kind of energy here. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully, we can, this will be productive. And again, men at least, understand that if men are going through that, one, that you're not alone. And that there's certain things that you might want to consider to try if you've been in that situation, steps you can take to get help in that situation. And that's kind of how we want to have the conversation tonight. So, but just to kind of level set a little bit, Peter, before I go in and start sharing, do you want to kind of have an opening statement or salvo that you want to drop before we get into this?
Yeah, I want people to understand when it comes to man's DV, the numbers are actually more higher than they're reported because most men would not report it. They're embarrassed to report it. I have talked to other victims. I am one of the victims personally. I've talked to other victims. I have talked to law enforcement. I even talked to family members who are in law enforcement. I talked to lawyers. I talked to DV counselors, all this stuff. Men don't usually report this. Because the biggest factor is they're embarrassed. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. If you're a victim, get the help. You're not trapped. I have helped multiple people because I know how it feels to be in that situation. And years and years ago, I said, I'm never going to be in that situation. And when I was in that situation, you do feel trapped. You don't know where to go. You don't know who to ask. You're scared to ask, embarrassed. Mm-hmm. But when you ask for the help and things are changed, you're going to have a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. And also, I just want to give some additional context to this conversation, Peter. Do you want to share your background in terms of your combat training experience? I mean, go talk about that a little bit. What's your background in the martial arts?
All right, so in martial arts, I have a third degree black belt. A style called Saijutsu Netsu. It's self-defense based. When people hear mixed martial arts, they think UFC right away. It's not. It's street self-defense motivated. Second, I'm also a three times world grand champion. On top of that, I had opened my own school. I have won medals, championships, you name it. I've done almost anything you can think except going pro in this style. My career ended briefly with a illegal shot to the knee, and they took me out. Unfortunately, it was one of my goals to go pro, but things happen for a reason. God had a different path for me. If I didn't have my knee blown out, I won't admit none of you guys for this network. So with my martial arts, could I have defended myself in multiple chances? Absolutely. But I always find a way not to use my martial arts because I know for a fact I would have bracelets on my arms instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I just wanted people to know that because not to say that, because a lot of times, this title, okay, you're a wimp or you don't, you're soft or all these kind of things, things that all these stigmas that are put on guys or whatever. It is not the case, but I think a lot of it does have to do with how you're taught and how you're raised. So again, even BMU is asked some questions here. Again, should we consider a mother's abuse to a son verbal or physical domestic violence if he's an adult? And again, that to me, that's a bit of a gray area in terms of the verbal piece. I'm not saying, and my man Eric here, he's talking about this as well, that, from a personal experience, that emotional and psychological cruelty and betrayal cuts a lot deeper. Again, I don't want to minimize that as well. But when it comes to statistics or reporting on these things, that's harder to prove. So if someone insults you or someone denigrates you in certain ways, is that reportable? Is that arrestable? Is that, so again, that, and I'm sure that exists, and certainly I'm sure it exists a lot more than the physical violence happens. No question about that. But how do we answer
that question very fast?
Go for it.
In Pennsylvania and in New York, that I know. The reason I know New York law is because my cousin was a detective in New York. So you cannot report somebody calling you stupid, retarded, all those names, all right? But now if they say, you know what, I'm going to delete you. I'm going to do any kind of violence.
Yeah, threats of violence. Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. You can report that for terrorist attacks, actually, it's called. That's the charge. And as in state of New York, it's actually a felony, of first felony, and in Pennsylvania is a misdemeanor 3. So it depends on the state. There's also different laws change over places to go. Like I know for a fact in the state of New York, now DV is actually started as a felony, not a misdemeanor anymore. So that's have changed the whole ball game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, so insults, whether she wants to belittle you, talk about your anatomy, I don't know if those are things that are arrestable, or and how such they would even get into the data or the statistics. So that's why for me, that's an area that I know it happens, but it's hard to quantify. But certainly BMU's point about the verbal and the abuse. Now you're talking about if he's an adult. But one of the things I was going to think about tonight was what happens when you're a child. Because one of the things I think that happens is, why do men oftentimes accept when they're the bigger, stronger person? Why do they even accept it? Could it be that they've been conditioned since they were young to accept abuse from a woman, that woman possibly being her mother or an older woman? And could that be one of the reasons why men hold back? Conditioning can start very early. And so that could certainly be a reason. But as far as verbal abuse, now again, it's physical. It's physical. I mean, I don't care who's doing it to you. Your mother, your sister, relative, or your girlfriend, or wife. Doesn't matter. If you're an adult and people are physically trying to assault you, that is DV. And I don't make any distinction whether it comes from your mom or not. And like I was saying on another show I was on with King a few nights ago, I don't care who it is. I mean, a lot of times parents think they're your parents forever, or they think because they beat you as a kid they can beat you as an adult, or they still want the same terms. And I'm just not on that energy. I think you're supposed to raise an adult. That adult should be a better version of yourself. Be willing to step in case if you're not there. But you have a lot of people raising weak kids and weak adults. And they just think they own them. And we talk about these mama's boys and whatnot, where the mama's still running their lives. And I think that's a major problem. But I think that goes back to conditioning. I think that goes back to, again, how that male was raised.
Unfortunately, you're person right now. The way these kids are growing up, they're sissies for now, and every little thing you say to them, they start crying. I'm not saying you should really abuse them, but they need to take a roasting once in a while. You know what I'm saying? And they don't know how to take a roasting at all. Like you can joke around with so many different ways, and then you have to explain yourself why you say it in a certain way. People are a little bit over too sensitive too now these days. You gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah, son husbands. That's the term I was looking for. Thank you, BMU. But you're making a point that it becomes a mental illness at that point that a man or a teenager allows a woman who is shorter or weaker person to be. But again, that may start as a child, because that woman or that older woman was bigger than them at one point. And if you've been conditioned not to fight back against them, then is that is that, what you're setting up later on? It's like what they talk about the elephant. If you chain a baby elephant to a post when it's a baby, even as an adult, even though it's physically strong enough to pull itself out from that restraint, it won't do it because it's been conditioned to do to do otherwise. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. The only thing we have to break down the lines here, like difference of like getting you abuse versus just getting a little whip because you acted out from your parents. That's two different things. Like if you get a little smack on the hand, that's not abuse in my eyes. But
right.
If it takes like a metal belt and beats you with it, and you are like a little you have slashes in your back. Yeah, that is abuse.
Well, we've had shows on that. Like I said, I'm not a fan of corporal punishment, and I don't consider slapping on the hand or the on the butt a corporal punishment. But again, if you're coming from the African American community, that was the standard. These big thick belts that you would whip with, or switches, or extension cords from electronic equipment or something. So all those things were realities. You did have welts on you. If you didn't have welts, you didn't get a good whooping. That was kind of like the mindset and the mentality back then. So for me, I've been pretty consistent in that I don't believe in corporal punishment at all as a regular or normative form of disciplining your children. You can quote me, spare the rod, spoil the child, all you want from the Bible, but I'm just not with that. And so I think I've been pretty consistent. But again, especially if we're going to be talking about male domestic violence or DV, and you have these situations where, again, why is it that these men who are bigger and stronger than the women who are abusing them, they're not trying to stop this going on? I think that can certainly be a conditioning thing that again starts early in life, and when that happens. That could be a situation, but BMU saying we got a poll. I believe that's been raised in the chat. For some reason, I'm not seeing it here, but certainly
I do see it on one of my screens.
Okay, I don't have I got to launch another session. So we got a poll in the chat. P, if you want to read that poll and just
do you? I just lost it. Hang on, let me get it back. Here we go. Do you believe a man can be a victim of domestic violence?
Okay.
Right now, they are voting. Right now, it's 100% yes and 0% no.
Yeah. I mean, but again, as much as that is said, again, there's certainly been a spirit or sentiment that, again, that still to this day prevents guys from coming out. Now, again, I hope more guys come out certainly in the future. But certainly, I would expect that poll to be slanted certainly in that direction. So again, we'll be monitoring the poll certainly throughout the show, and towards the end of the show, we'll get what the final tally is going to be. But yeah, I wanted to share some stats if I could. In terms of where this is now, one of the stats that I found that was interesting, they dealt with a particular group of individuals. So let me just give me a minute to share here. I thought I had to share before I had the show up, but this particular stat, it dealt actually with military. So this is DV between men and women in the military. Obviously, you're dealing with, I think, a different type of individual. Who is in the military versus just a civilian. There may be a more tendency towards aggression, certainly in that case. And so let me just bring this up. This was a study from a while. And another thing, too, this has been going on for a while. But let me pull this up. Okay, so this is from Wikipedia, and I also cited the sources for these studies at the bottom that you can look up. So again, this was in 1997. Philip W. Cook conducted a study of 55,000 members of the U.S. Armed Forces, finding bidirectionality. That means that both the men and women are kind of giving it to each other. It's not just the violence isn't just going in one direction. 60 to 64% of intimate partner violence cases, Then there was another study, 2001, National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health found that 49.7% of intimate partner violence was reciprocal and 50.3% non-reciprocal. So again, it kind of goes back and forth. So it's not just one-sided. The one highlighted in purple here, overall data shows 70.7% of non-reciprocal intimate partner violence were perpetrated by women only. 74.9% when reported by men, 67.7% when reported by women, and 29.3% were perpetuated by men only. I got my tongue twisted tonight. 25.9% by men, 32% reported by women. If I go down a little bit more, 21.4% by women only. For severe assault, found that 10.8% was found, of which 54% was bidirectional. So again, you both kind of throwing blows at each other. Was bidirectional. 15.7% was perpetuated by men. I can't get that word out. And 29.4% by women only. So it seems like in this category in the military, where you have these relationships, there seems to be a much higher incidence of women hitting men in the military. You can't get any, again, more macho than that in the military, but yet certainly there's a high propensity for DV where the women against the men versus the other way around. But again, you're talking military, certainly someone in that space, again, the energy might be different there versus, again, a civilian. You're trained in combat, you're trained to be a soldier in some form of capacity, and so again, that may carry over into the in the relationship. So just some additional stats here. This is from a law group. So again, you do have the Violence Against Women Act, but that act also is for men as well. It's not just for that. Is saying, again, nearly 1 in 7% experience severe physical violence from an intimate partner during their lifetime. Again, this was from November of 2024. Again, common challenges that males victims face. Again, the social stigma of underreporting. Again, many men feel that they won't be believed or may be labeled as the abuser. CDC shows only about 10% of men report sexual violence, physical abuse, or stalking by a partner to authorities. 10%. Lack of awareness about resources. So even within the Violence Against Women Act, there are programs, men you can call also. But again, how many will do that? And then the last one is misconceptions by law enforcement or service providers. Field officers or community advocates may mistake or dismiss male victims, assuming abuse only affects women, overlooking cases of physical abuse, emotional manipulation, or intimidation. Okay, so those are certainly factors why men are underreporting. But again, if only 10% are reporting, then how can any changes be made, whether it be on the political level, on the law enforcement level, if guys are not going to speak up when these things are happening? But again, we have these social stigmas that, you're going to be labeled a certain way if you're a victim of this, especially if you are the bigger, if you are the stronger, if you're the one who you would think you should be able to handle yourself in that particular situation. So again, the act is certainly, it covers, even though it's named for women, it applies to both men and women. Still, many suffer in silence. Only 42% of violent victimizations were reported to police, meaning the majority of survivors, especially men, may never receive the help that they deserve. Got some more stats here, and you can stop me anytime you want to, Peter, in terms of the anything you want to highlight here. This is from the national.
You know what? Let me jump in really fast.
Sure thing. Go for it.
So let's go back for the military thing. Obviously, I have mentioned multiple times, I have a lot of friends in the military. So I seen this go. I seen it mostly from the women to the men. I know for a fact it's both ways, but I seen it mostly when they come back. Most of these guys are coming from from a big tour, a year tour, 15 months, 16 months, whatever. They're kind of messed up in the head. So they're not acting themselves, and the question has been asked: are you cheating? All this stuff. and tempers flare. And next minute, you know, tempers flare, fists go flying. And obviously, most of it does not get reported. Now, in the civilian practice, 10% is a very low number for us not to report things.
Mm.
Like, I hate to say it like this, but when a woman gets hit, it makes it this big ass deal. But when a man is like, they like push it under the rug. And I seen it firsthand, personally, when it happened to me. The cops didn't give a shit. She even admitted it. Yeah, I threw the guard scissors at his ass. I slapped him around. No handcuffs in her hands. Nothing.
Mm.
She got a $150 fine and got it dropped in the end. That's it.
Yeah.
So pretty much they get a license to hit and get away with it pretty much. But
Yeah. Yeah, Black man talk about Trey. Again, we got I got Trey, who was, I believe, is in the Air Force. Trey said officers take their time getting those cases and they often laugh. Yeah, so it's not something that's looked at. National domestic violence. What's that? Yeah.
I'll give you another example. My cousin, he was dating a Puerto Rican woman. She stabbed him. She beat the crap out of him. And the cops showed up. They took her away. Whatever. The court came around, and the judge called her name up. I don't remember. I don't remember her last name, to be honest. You know, Jenny. Whatever. Lazarus Vasalda comes up. He looked at both of them and goes, "She beat you up? Uh-huh. You beat him up. Uh-huh." I'm sitting in the back watching this whole thing now. He goes, "You're 6'2", right? Like more like 6'5".
Yeah.
He goes, "How tall are you?" 5'5"?
I'm 6'2". 6'2 and a half. 6'2 and a half.
And he goes, "How much you weigh?" 300 something pounds. "How much you weigh?" 125. "She beat you up." You go, "Huh?" He starts laughing in the courtroom and dismisses the whole case. He thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Tells you that a lot. Our court system.
Yeah, no question. No question. And again, just some additional stats here. So again, we're not, as I said in the show, we are not minimizing the overwhelming evidence that again, as far as women who suffer from this is a real problem that certainly needs to be addressed. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the U.S. have experienced rape, violence, and other stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Almost half of men and women in the U.S. have experienced psychological aggression and by an intimate partner in their lifetime, 48.4 versus 48.8 respectively. Women ages 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 generally experienced the highest rates of DV. From 1994 to 2010, 4 in 5 victims of DV were female. Again, not trying to skew the stats in any way or for people to think that it's not happening or it's been over-reported women. That's not what we're saying here. Here, this is from, again, the National Library of Medicine. Again, citing this is something came out by Martin Hooker, Kevin King, Gary A. Jordan, and William Smock. Again, I can put in the chat. In fact, I'll do that now. If people want to look up these stats, or you just go back and play the show, you can get the link and download it. But again, as many as 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men are victims of domestic violence. In men, says usually DV is perpetuated by a man against a woman. However, females may exhibit violent behavior against their male partners. Again, 3 out of 10 women at some point are stalked, physically assaulted, raped by intimate partner, compared to 1 in 10 out of every men. Again, this is happening. Again, 500,000 women are physically assaulted or raped by intimate partner, compared to 100,000 men. Now, again, 5 to 1. Yes, women are solely victims of. But again, 100,000 men. That's not something that just needs to be swept under the rug. But again, But if you're not going to be reporting on what's going on, then that's going to be, again, that's what makes it problematic. Here's another study. Now, this is from the UK, but it's similar. A different study here from the cited from the UK, I believe. This one here says studies identified by the research prevalence rates of 3.4% to 20.3% for DV against men. Most of the men affected have been violent towards their partners themselves. 10.6 to 40% of them have reported being abused or maltreated as children. And that was the thing I was talking about earlier. Why some of these things are accepted by men or women. Did you see it in your youth? And if you did, then does that make you more prone or prevalent to accepting that kind of behavior as an adult? Again, that's one of the reasons why, again, I am not an advocate for corporal punishment. And again, I think I've been pretty pretty consistent about that. We got our guy Poppy Blanco in the building. Certainly, what's going on, man? Looks like these Knicks about to finally get that chip after 53 years. But it's certainly good to see you, sir. You said I'm I'm doing well. Doing well, sir. But again, thanks for stopping by. Certainly, you're always welcome to here. It's always good when you're around. Here from Psychology Today. This is from 2024. Male victims of intimate partner DV. Just some key points from this article. Again, it is a public health issue. Male DV victims share many of the symptoms that females do, including PTSD. So again, this is a thing. Help and healing for male victims start with knowing that they will be believed. And just some quick stats from the CDC. Again, nearly 1 out of 2 women and 2 in 5 men reported experience intimate partner violence at some point in their lifetime. And again, 1 in 4 men in the U.S. have endured some sort of physical violence by their partner. Now, this is actually, I'm sorry, I got it confused earlier. This is actually a UK site, this Mankind Initiative. This is in the UK, mankind.org.uk. So they were kind of citing their stats here. And this was from, again, Office of National Statistics. They're saying that the Office of National Statistics also produced combined figures included sexual abuse, domestic abuse, and stalking for 2024 and 2025. 5.1 million people. This is the UK. 3.2 million women and 2 million men. So again, it's enough to again have a conversation. I think I'll kind of stop there. So again, you can go and certainly look at the stats, whether you believe the stats or not, or whether you think it's certainly worth mentioning. And again, I know people are going to get their stats and say, again, I am not going to argue for the umpteenth time that women are overwhelmingly the victims in these situations. I'm not. And so don't come back to me saying, okay, well, what about this? When, still we're acknowledging at the forefront. But does that mean that, again, men do not deserve to be believed? Does it mean that men should not have a platform and a place where they can certainly get the help that they need in that situation if you're suffering from symptoms, whether that started in your childhood or even as an adult? That shouldn't mean that men shouldn't go and get the help that they need in these particular situations. So I just wanted to kind of share that, just kind of level set the conversation a little bit, that there are men out there. And again, for Peter, he's had his own experience. So again, Pete, if you want to share your personal experience of what that was, what that like, I mean, you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share.
No,
but just to put a face on what that looks like. Again, as we said at the beginning, Peter has a multiple degree black belt in martial arts. He's won martial arts tournaments, so again, he can take care of himself.
I hope so.
but he got caught up in a situation that certainly and it affected him in a lot of ways. So if you want if you want to share your personal experience with this and just however you want to, floor is yours. You can just take it wherever you want it in this case.
So when I met this woman, didn't think anything of it. She had a few drinks, smoked, didn't realize she was alcoholic at the time, but that's a whole different conversation, of course. She used to always say to me like, "Oh, my ex-husband's brother used to beat his woman, and I slapped him the shit out of him. He would never do that again. Blah blah blah. Whatever." She tell me I always tell my kids, she had 2 boys and 2 girls, 4 kids total, saying, If a woman ever hits you, you never hit them back. All right. Didn't think anything of it. So our relationship was going down, up and down at the time. And I was sitting outside, minding my own business. Was gonna move out there pretty soon. And keep you guys in mind, it was not only myself, my mother was living with us too. She had nothing to do with this. So we separate our phone lines at a time. So I ended up getting a new phone. Verizon said to me at the time, we can't really transfer your T-Mobile phone, but we can transfer the number. You just have to get a new phone. No problem, whatever. Sitting out there, it was raining. I remember that much. She was drinking heavily. And next time she comes outside, like, she goes to me, like, goes, "Is this your phone?" I'm like, "Yeah." "What's on your hand?" "That's my phone too." "Oh, you're gonna screw me?" Like, "I'm not screwing you. Don't worry, you're gonna get your money." Next thing I know, I'm getting slapped from every end. My first reaction, I put my hands behind my back because I know I do have neighbors. And Paul, you've been around this neighborhood. You see how the house so close. They're not far away, so people can see what's going on. So she eventually grabs me by my shirt and throws me off the deck. Throws my phone, throws my cigarettes, throws everything. I'm like, all right. Next thing I know, she grabs the garden scissor. She picks it up, puts it over her head. And remind you, she's about 5'1". Hail Mayors over her shoulder. I'm like, as I'm turning around, I see her doing it, like, going, "Oh, fuck me." I try to cut to her left, did not make it. Slaps it in my back. I'm like, motherfucker. And it kind of knocked the wind out of me a little bit, to be honest with you. So I only hear my neighbor says, "Pete, don't worry. I already called the cops. They're on the way." Before I know the cops are there. So the cops asked me to come over there, and I walked over. Fine. He goes, "What's going on?" I explained to him the whole story. The first question they asked me after that, "What's going on?" "Can I see your hands?" "My hands? Why?" "Can I see your hands?" He asked me again. "Oh, yeah, sure. I have it." He goes, "Turn your hands around, please." "Oh, all right, you didn't hit her." "Oh, you think I'm the victim?" I'm the assaulter." "All right. So would you hit her again? Hit you again?" "My back, my face." Like, "Yeah, I can see your face, a little scoot, got a couple bruises." Turned around, I left my shirt, and I had a big slash in my back. I go, "Okay." So she, they want to talk to her. The cop said I can go back in the house and make sure mom's okay and everything. As I'm leaving, she says, "Listen, obviously she had a little bit too much to drink, but there's nothing really there we can, press charges. We just could give her a fine." And I looked at a 18 officer like, "Nothing to press charges there. Did you see my back?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a slash. It's a little scratch. What's the big deal?" "A big deal? You do understand," I went to him. "Now, the garden scissor became an assault weapon." Just like that. He goes like, "Well, you worry about what you do for a living. Let me do the police force part." I go, "Well, you're an idiot." I went to him. So mom wasn't feeling good. I took an ambulance. We were homeless for a couple weeks. So I followed up, and they ended up dropping the fine too. That was first case. Actually, that was my second case. My first case was years ago, and this one I didn't call the cops on. When my first ex, cheated on me. Came home, mind my own business. Nothing of it. And mom goes like, "What are you doing home?" "I live here." Simple, being a smart ass. She goes, "Oh, I thought you came from the front door." "We never come through the front door. We always come in the garage." My girl came from the front door for some reason. I woke upstairs. She's literally fucking somebody else in my own bedroom, and my mother downstairs in my bed. She jumps off and attacks me. Mind me, I was carrying my firearm that day too. Didn't use it. Slashes my face open, my chest, and everything.
Hang on. Let's just again recap this. You walk in on her in your room, in your bed. She's having sex with another man.
Mm-hmm.
She sees you. She gets up from the act.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess she's like butt naked,
Pretty
and
much.
she attacks you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it gets even worse. Then she,
Okay.
we're trying to work it out. A week later, she calls the cops on me saying I pulled the gun on her. Like, what? I never pulled a gun on her. Can you prove it? No. How can I prove it? Because that's the problem. That's it was a whole episode. And people think I'm paranoid. Why I have cameras all over my house now. Every room has a camera in it.
Mm-hmm.
For a reason. Think about what I'm saying, Paul. Now I have evidence.
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately, unfortunately, a lot of guys think that again, they won't be believed unless it's recorded, and you got to have a lot of different angles and whatnot, in order to prove that you weren't the instigator or the perpetrator of what that is. And now we're in an age where everyone has a cell phone. I mean, if I had a son. That's why I would tell him, if you get into like an argument that's getting heated, if you can't get away from a situation, pull out your camera, pull out your phone and start recording. Because if it's going to be a you versus her, I still think that certainly the laws are such where, again, you're not going to be believed. Now, if it's in a public spot, I mean, I know a lot of public spaces, restaurants and whatnot, they have cameras now. I remember there was an Olympic gold medal sprinter, Sha'Carri Richardson. She got arrested by assaulting her boyfriend, who's also an Olympic track athlete, in the airport. But again, not only was it witnessed, but they also had the cameras showing her doing it. And she was kind of arrested on the spot. Now, again, what happened to her in that case? I doubt if the brother. I think they're still together, so I don't think he pressed charges or anything like that. But certainly just the way she was just kind of going at him. But, she was still arrested for it, but it was because of all that evidence that was there. It's almost like they had to. But again, what was the consequences of that? I'd have to look that up to see if there were actual charges. But they're still together now. So I guess the question I would have is, on multiple instances, on multiple occasions, she has assaulted you, and obviously, certainly nobody wants to walk in on their woman with another man. Why did you stay? To the best of your recollection? Because again, I mean, we got to ask this question. That a lot of times in these cases, this has gone on for a lot of times, and guys won't leave. Whether it be the physical or whether it be the verbal, the emotional, or whatnot, I think, that's a question that a lot of people who may not understand the issue, that's what they're asking. Well, if it's all that bad, why don't you leave? But again, the same question is asked to women also. Why don't you leave if he's doing that to you? And they have their reasons, but from a man's perspective, talk about why did you stay in that situation?
Let's go with the first one. That I caught her cheating in my house. It was a week only. Because I was trying to see, maybe I thought I was wrong. I was young, stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So the second time was her alcohol talking. She literally begged me for a second chance. You know what? I'll give you a second chance, but I made terms and conditions. You're not drinking. You gotta come back and drinking. So she was only having like 1 or 2 beers on the weekend. I was fine with that, but not like having a 6-pack every fucking night and a bottle of wine on top of that.
Mm. So she was getting sloppy, sloppy drunk with that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, every night. Yeah. She couldn't wait to open a bottle, a drink in her hand when we go home. And I thought, I know a lot of Spanish people, and that's common in Spanish culture, having a drink after work and relaxing. So it's common, and like in even European countries, a lot of them it's common coming home after a long day, have a cigarette and a beer. It's common, or a couple beers. It's common, but I didn't put the science together because I never really lived alcoholism like that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually she ended up cheating on me anyway. So that's the funny part.
Mm-hmm.
Is because, I gave her a second chance. I was stupid. Now, if this happened with my current woman, and I know she wouldn't, no, there won't be no second chance. And I bet you, everything I have loyal, I wouldn't let this go. She's just getting a fight. Oh, hell fucking no. I would pull every research, every penny I have in my name to see justice happen.
Mm-hmm.
If a man can get me arrested, if I put my hands on her, let's say the day I put my hands on her when she threw the garden scissor, I literally roundhouse her head to the concrete. They wouldn't see it as a self-defense. They would see it as assault, as a man, DV man versus woman again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. But you couldn't take this bitch in? No. Fuck that. And she thought it was funny. That was the funny part. Because we're working together and she's laughing and making jokes about it at work. They're not taking it serious. They're thinking like it's because they have a fucking vagina, they can get away with murder. I'm sorry. You need justice too.
Mm-hmm.
We are up to, as men, as a standard. You as women have to have a standard too.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just say, "Oh, I was because I was drunk." No, drinking has nothing to do with it. But drinking multiplies your inside thoughts. You had violent thoughts and you act on them.
Yeah. And probably you were allowed, and that's the thing also. This is that kind of behavior has probably been allowed in relationships that certainly came before you in the picture. And that's the thing also. So when is that? So again, this is conditioning on both. So what I'm seeing here, just from your example, is again, you have men that, certainly we've been raised with these ideas or raised with these values. One, that you should never hit a woman under any circumstances. You just don't. You should never under any circumstances put your hands on a woman. But as far as women, I don't know if they're being raised with that same standard. You shouldn't you shouldn't be putting your hands on anybody, at least unless it's self-defense. Mm-hmm. But certainly women, there have been some women who've been allowed to get away with this sort of thing, with men not retaliating. And I'm not talking about the ones that are being abused and whatnot. I'm talking about in these specific cases why, you have these women, if they've hit once, they'll hit again. And nobody's checked them on it. And I guess I'm asking that question, like, why is I get law enforcement. And again, the way law enforcement interacted with you, basically, you were basically guilty before proven innocent. In those particular cases, I still think as a person, I would rather put the deal with the consequences later. But I cannot. If I had a son today, I would never tell my son, never not act to protect themselves, physically or otherwise. If you can't get away from a situation, if that is going on, not to defend themselves. And I have known people who've gone after with frying pans and knives and blades and all this kind of stuff. And the guy's just trying to run away and try to skip or whatever. But again, I have no issue with a man using strength to disarm or situation. Now, I'm not saying you should just beat the crap out of somebody. Again, you talked about if you responded with a roundhouse kick or whatever, would that in that case, the fact that she had the scissors in her hand, would that have been reciprocal or reasonable response against a violent aggression? I still think so. But again, you being a martial artist, you know about how to disarm. You know how to, pin someone down without necessarily having to hit them.
Correct.
But in that instance, you didn't act either. So I guess what I was asking you earlier is like, why? What were the things that were holding you back from responding?
I was worried if I put my hands on her, they wouldn't look at it as I was defending myself. I was an aggressor because of the size difference. Because she's a woman. Mm-hmm. I've seen it multiple times, not once, not twice, multiple times to other people. Mm-hmm. They're defending themselves, and they are the ones going to jail.
Yeah,
to the boss, the officer's senior officer, and according to the body cam, he was wrong. The only thing I can do is you can file a complaint against him. He goes, she should have gone to jail that day. And I asked him the same question: what happened if I put our hands on it? You probably will be going to jail too. Mm-hmm. So it was a lose-lose situation for me either way. Because now,
but so again, but I guess there's certain levels of loss that I'd be willing to take, or if I had a son that I would tell him to take. Mm-hmm. Like I just believe just across the board. Like I said, I will deal with the legal consequences later. No one has a right to put their hands on you. Full stop. No one. So I don't care if it's the 300-pound bully at school or the 120-pound bully at school, because I've seen some of those guys also. I don't care if it's the woman. I don't care who it is. Someone comes at you with violence, you have every right to defend and to protect yourself. I would rather kick that can down the road and deal with the consequences, whether it be law enforcement or what have you. Certainly you take precautions. Certainly if you can record the interaction, or again, if it happens in a public kind of situation where there's cameras or something that can see the interactions, then yeah, certainly those would be useful. But because of the potential psychological damage that can do to somebody, especially a man, like was said in the Psychology of Today study, that men suffer the same symptoms of PTSD just like a woman does.
Absolutely.
And you can say, well, yeah, I took a step back. I didn't defend myself because I'm afraid of what law enforcement is going to do to me. But what about your soul? What about the consequences in relationships that you have had to deal with? What about have you had therapy for this? Talk about that. What have you had to do to kind of help heal from that situation?
So first, I was like guilt, blame, like I didn't know why it happened. So when I gave her a second chance, I thought we worked through it. But when the relationship ended, and the fucked up part, when she was trying to cheat on me, she was cheating on me. She was trying to hook up with one of my best friends, and my best friend looked at her like, yeah, he's gonna find out. He's gonna rip your goddamn head off when he finds out. So afterwards, yeah, I got a lot of therapy, and the therapist said you definitely have some PTSD from that. That's not even no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
My first relationship after that suffered because I couldn't open up. That wall was so high. It was past the moon, past Mars. It was on universe 3.8. That's how high it was. Nobody was taking that wall down. But it took years and years and years and years to take it down. And it took me almost 4 years to break that wall down. To the point, like with my current woman, I'm very open. She knows the whole story. I have been transparent with her from day one with this. And she understands where my insecurity issues come from. It's from that. Totally understands that. And she works with me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have my moments, she grounds me. I'll be honest with you, bro. She does ground me. That's a woman you need to bring home to mom, I think, right?
Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
But so, I'm curious, like for the guys in the chat, because like I said, if I've gotten into debates and arguments with people, again, the never hit a woman crowd, again, I can empathize with that, but that was just not being edict. And I've talked to my wife about this. It's like if we had a son and our son was getting, hit on by a woman or whatnot, does he have a right to defend himself? And, like I said, my wife is pretty even keel. She would go ballistic if that was happened, and she would absolutely say certainly for son to, again, defend himself. That, again, nobody should be putting their hands on you, period. Now, again, law enforcement being what it is, certainly that's a potential fear that you're going to have from this from the situation. But again, I'm kicking that can down the road. But I'm not going to the psychological damage from that. I think can have greater implications down the road. And so, like I said, I would never tell my son, if anybody's coming at him, defend yourself, like Judge Mills Lane, boxing referee, said, protect yourself at all times. I'm going to be saying the same thing. That kind of attention should not be tolerated. Now, again, I'm also backing that up by the fact that, again, I do not believe in corporal punishment, where I think a lot of this resides. If you grew up where, mom would just slap you across the face or something like that, or that stuff was just accepted, are we setting up men for this kind of situation later on, where they're like the elephant is so conditioned that they cannot respond even, and I'm not saying hit back, I'm saying restrain. If you don't like the idea of hitting, can you restrain? Can you separate yourself from a way where, again, you're not taking the incoming? Instead of just balling up like a ball and just kind of taking it, but again, you have agency to do certain things.
Unfortunately, the law doesn't look at gray area. It's black and white. In the if your hands are on her, you're an aggressor. You're going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter if you just pinning her down and holding her like a Kurgai's control hold or into a naked choke.
Mm-hmm.
Because your hands are on her, you're in the wrong completely automatically. As
Mm-hmm.
men, we have a target on our backs.
Mm-hmm.
Even I just pinned her down. Let's say I pinned her down on her stomach and I had her locked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, she's not in pain, but she's locked up. She can't move. And when the cops showed up, I was on top of her. I would have been in handcuffs on the spot.
I get, and that is a price I'm set for me personally.
Yeah.
That is a price I'm willing to accept, or at least a chance, something I'm willing to risk. Now, what I've been seeing lately, because there was a time for the last couple of months I was kind of on like on a YouTube binge, so I was watching all these cop arrest videos,
Yeah.
like live action with the cop stuff. Usually, what I've been seeing as of late, especially like in states like Florida doesn't play. Florida's like, again, if there's an altercation between a man and a woman or whatever, y'all both getting arrested. They from what I've been seeing from Florida, it's like kind of cut down the split down the middle. If a couple's having a fight, they're both going to jail, and then they'll deal with it. It's like, oh well, he started and she started. It's like we taking both you in, and both you guys getting charged in that situation, at least in Florida anyway. And again, I would have to go state to state to see how they, each one's doing. But I think some of these states are starting to open and say, look, we don't care who starts it. That we're going to deal, we're going to deal with this, which I think is, again, a fairer way to go about it. Because as we saw certainly from the military stats, between military personnel, the majority of those interactions, again, there was reciprocal violence. They're both going at each other. First of all, they've both been trained in combat, so you would think it would make sense to a degree that both will be using, whatever they've been taught to use in military to go at each other. But again, I think that, I'm hoping, especially when you've been seeing, a lot of these videos and interactions and how law enforcement is dealing with it, it's like, no, they're not holding back. If the woman is the perpetuator in a situation, she's getting arrested. In fact, I saw one in particular where you had this couple that was out, and the woman kind of got into it or whatnot, and they were both, they were both in the car. They were like, this is my fiance. Yeah, we got a little drunk or whatever. We got into a fight or whatever. But again, because it happened in a public spot, and they were basically saying, it's like, look, no, y'all both going. And she was all distraught. It's like, look, this cost me my job and career and all this kind of stuff. Because again, it's a felony. It's not I think a lot of these folks are not playing around anymore. And again, I hope that it continues to go in that direction. Because I think both men and women need to learn to keep your hands to yourselves. And the more of these interactions, a lot of these things are being recorded now. You see, like there was an incident that happened in New York on a subway where a woman came up and slapped the guy, and the guy went and slapped her back, and it was like a big ruckus on the train or whatever. The guy wasn't charged because the video clearly showed that she was the aggressor. She came up to him and just slapped him in the face and walked away like, what you going to do? Dude came back and popped. And the judge was like, no, she started it. It's done. Like I said, I will roll the dice in that situation. But I will not have my son taking any incoming from anybody. And I think that conversation has to change. What fathers tell their sons. They continually talk about, oh, well, anything that happens or whatever, the cops are going to blame you and all that sort of thing. I think we just need to grow out of that. Because I'm starting to believe now in my mind, again, I don't have the evidence. This could be totally anecdotal. I think the numbers are being skewed because so few men are stepping up. 10% of these cases are not being reported. No, sorry. Only 10% are being reported.
I think the number is a lot lower than that, to be honest with you, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I know it says 10% in the survey, but if I say personally, I think it's like more close to between 2 and 5% only.
Right.
You're more often than you think.
Yeah. And again, that has to change. And so as men, again, stop judging other men. I don't think you're wimpy or whatever. I mean, I would ask the legit question, well, why didn't you defend yourself? I would ask you that honest question. And then we can get into, again, what you've been taught. So, again, I think a lot of this conditioning starts very early. In recent years, we've had Me Too, which I'm not totally against. We have Believe All Women, which I definitely am against. Because like anything else, I mean, it's like, look, things have to be proven. You make an allegation against somebody, no one should necessarily get the benefit of, by law, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So innocence should always be with the one that's accused. And let that be taught and, let that be figured out in a court of law. But I think unless men start to say, no, I'm not doing it, and let's also get to the psychological again, why you're staying. You talk about the conditioning, why you're staying. Could some of this also be because you don't think you could do better for yourself?
Oh, absolutely. That's what it was. That's definitely one of the reasons.
I mean, that's an uncut. And the fact that you admit that, again, I think that's bold. That takes guts to do so, because especially in these manosphere spaces, everybody's an alpha male here.
So before the incident, she broke me down mentally. Coming up to me, this is the part that fucking fucks my head up a little bit. She goes to me at one point. She goes, "Oh," she starts grabbing my pants. She goes, "I want a real fucking man. I want a real fucking man. You fucking goddamn bitch." I'm like, and then she started breaking me down mentally. But in the same token, she goes, "Well, you fuck me better than any of my ex-husbands used to do. So which one is it? You want a real fucking man or you want what?" She broke me down mentally first. Then it was physically. When she broke me down mentally, I didn't think I had anything. Nobody wanted me. I was worthless. I was a piece of shit. I was nothing. I should have been swallowed when I was a sperm sack. That's how I felt.
And she would tell these things to you, like, just to beat you down.
Yep, but for everybody too.
Wow. But was that?
Go, just spit it out.
No, I'm going to make sure I fashion this correctly when I ask. Is this? Were you believing that before she told it to you? It's like if she told you something that totally wasn't true, it doesn't affect you. But if she went to a place that was kind of in you already, were you one that was like, "Hey, I'm with this lady or whatever, she likes me or whatever"? It's like, because I think some people believe that they can't do any better, or that they don't respect themselves to think that I can do better at the first instance.
So the better question that's not the question you need to ask me. The question is, where was I mentally when I met her?
Okay, fine. Start there. Yep.
Let's go there. Let's back it up a little bit. When I first met her, mentally, I was not in a good place, shape, or form.
Okay.
I'm going to backtrack it even more now. So a few months before I met her, my father got ran over by a car in New York City. Survived.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was out of work, and the doctors told me, "You're not probably going to ever work ever again." So that is a big blow to a man who's always working since the age of 12 in him.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tell a man who's always working you can't work? You cannot drive a cab because that's just life and work. So then my parents separated behind that. And right before my parents separated, my dad even told me before his car accident, "By the way, I cheated on your mom multiple times. It's not a big deal. Your mom was giving it up, so I had to get pussy somewhere else." Just like that. So mentally, I was not in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
So by her saying those stuff, I was already in bad mental place.
Mm-hmm.
So she just added more fuel to the fire for me.
Yeah. Appreciate our guy Craig all the way from the UK certainly being part of this tonight. I can answer that. Yes, you feel that you cannot do better. Again, there's so many layers to this. Again, what you've been, and certainly, again, we need justice now. Certainly been dropping certainly a lot of comments in the chat. Appreciate you being part of the conversation tonight. it's like many things that are kind of setting up this situation. How you've been raised, the values that you've been taught, the psychological thing, and what you come into the relationship with, and then how you're also broken down in the relationship until you find yourself in a situation where you think that you cannot get out of this situation. Again, it happens to men and it happens to women. Now, again, a lot of alpha males will be like, "Oh, you're just a weak individual." And I think again that language needs to stop, especially given what happens in law enforcement, certainly the current movements and the trends as far as how men are supposed to be interacting. Yeah.
So let's say I went through this multiple times in my head and with my therapist and everything. Now let's take out the mental issues out of it I was having. All right, mentally, I was still the strong individual that you know now. Okay, or the strong individual before all this that happened, parents separating, dad cheating, all this stuff, right?
Mm.
Yeah, she wouldn't be flying. I would have fucking ripped her ass apart so fucking hard. She would be in the female business crying. She was wishing man would cut her mom's vagina. And I promise you that's what would have happened. I'm not a failure. She's a failure.
Mm.
So you failed 2 marriages. Is always the man's problem? Maybe we should ask him now. Maybe you're the problem.
Mm-hmm. But you weren't asking those questions at the beginning, though.
Nope.
And that's what I'm saying. Also, it's like you talk about the state that you were in before, at the time you met her. You talk about some of the personal problems that were happening within your own family dynamic. You see this woman, and you find out early she's been married twice. Which again, in my view, that's now maybe at my age it's not as big a deal because I'm in my 50s now, so it's like it's not. You kind of expect people to go through multiple relationships, possible marriages and stuff. Maybe at my age, but again, you were certainly younger at that time. Again, these red flags, but again, sometimes the opportunity. Let's be real. Also, the opportunity for sex gets a lot of dudes in trouble.
Oh, sex wasn't an issue.
And you talk about and again, guys talk about, oh well, it's man's nature to be with a woman. It's the hardest thing in the world to turn down. I mean, we get all these excuses from again from a lot of these alpha dudes. It's like you see this red flag coming a mile away, and yet you still get into it, and now your emotions get involved in it, and now you can't get out of it.
So back then, sex was an issue. I could get it anytime. I could pick up a phone and I had somebody in my house in less than 20 minutes. To be straight up, people. Have I say no to sex? Absolutely. Because
so then that confuses me then.
Yeah, because I thought at the time when we got together, then the only part I forgot to mention also Hercules passed away also at the time. So that was my first beagle. So mentally, I was going down drain. I didn't know where I was going. I was lost in life, and I thought she picked me up to make me better. No, she didn't. She only cared about the BBD. Do you know what BBD stands for?
I think you probably have a different definition.
Better deal.
Okay,
that's what she cared about. Because I remember her saying, her second ex. Oh, my ex always had money. Now he's out of money. What am I gonna do with a man with no money? That's all she cared about. The dumb Dominican.
Mm.
Yeah, I said it. I'm not saying Dominicans are bad, but she was one of the worst. Mm. She was spoiled her life too, so she got away with it. Mm. She used to tell me her dad used to give her allowance about $200 to $300 a day in DR, and that's a lot of money in DR. Because if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's still running on pesos down there, so I'm not sure the difference of dollar, but $300 for a kid is a lot of money. I think a day. Think about what I'm saying. Mentally, I was in a bad place. If I had sold the head a year prior, or 5 years later, trust me, Paul, it was never happen.
Yeah.
Never happen.
Yeah, and obviously circumstances as such, and again, I'm sure it happens for women also. I mean, you uh, people find you where they find you, and if you're, and a lot of people are simply not ready for a relationship. You got this comment here from Douglas. My mouse isn't working here. Douglas talked about 40% of men do not breed, nor should they. Honestly, I don't have an issue with that because I think a lot of people are simply not ready for certain things. You're not ready to be a father or a mother for that matter. And a lot of people aren't ready for relationships because if they got a lot of things that are, a lot of baggage that they're just kind of hanging on to. But you have broken people getting with broken people, and then, things start to happen. So again, I'm also starting to understand because I was a big advocate of marrying young. Like I thought that the idea that people marrying at over 30, I thought was almost a detriment because you almost become too independent in that situation. So I would always prefer that people marry a little bit younger so that you can kind of grow together. But regardless if you're younger or older, it all comes down to, again, what is your sort of mental condition? Are you healthy? Are you in a good place with yourself mentally? Are you secure in yourself being by yourself? And a lot of people may not be necessarily in that position. And so they're always needing something that maybe they didn't get when they were kids or whatever. And again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not Dr. Shane Bryant, so I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not calling myself a doctor. I'm not going around saying stuff, or whatever. Again, we're having a conversation. We're just spitballing. I could be totally wrong about everything that I'm saying, and I admit that up front. But you just have, as you were saying, Pete, you just have a lot of people who are in some ways broken. And they're getting into situations where people can exploit that brokenness. And you can become under someone's control under that brokenness. And that could be from a male or female. I think We Need Justice Now was talking about earlier. They build you up, again, complimenting you, just up and down. Says up and tearing you down. A common behavior in a narcissist is a repeating pattern of showering you with love, compliments, and affection to suck you into a relationship, only then to tear you down. But again, what did you come into the relationship with? Are you whole enough to even, be in a position to, be ready for that? But now you're in and you think that you can't get out. And if you have kids, if you marry them, if you have kids with them or whatever, then even more so you feel this, well, I can't leave because that thing is, well, I don't want to break the family up. So you're willing to take on some things just for the sake of keeping the family together. That could be abuse of all kinds, physical, verbal, psychological, or whatever, or infidelity, or all kinds of things just to keep the family together. And I don't know if that's, again, the healthiest. That's certainly not the healthiest positions, certainly to be in. But like I said, given all that, you could talk about the lesser of two evils. I'm choosing the evil of self-defense, always. And again, that doesn't mean if she slaps you, then you just go and just waylay on her. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying protect yourself from harm and danger. And I think we have to start teaching our boys, our sons, early on. Not that there's certain things that you should not accept in your life. But to me, it's kind of hard as a parent if I'm the one that's doing that to my kid. Again, I'm not talking about spanking necessarily or whatever. But again, that kind of old school, and you got all these people talking about, yeah, we need to go back and get the belts out again and start whipping kids again. All this kind. I'm like, no. That could possibly be part of the issue. We're brought up in this culture of violence, period. And we need to stop the cycle from anybody. And then I think we can possibly see some changes there. But again, mothers, please do not put that in or instill that in your son. If you want your son to be a strong provider, protector male, an honorable male. He should value his person. You're going to be more than likely, you're going to be the first teacher to your son. And are you going to teach your son there's certain things that you should not expect from a woman? But that's hard to do if you're the one that's doing it to him. So this is a again, deep area. There's obviously, there might be some people in the chat that's like, oh, you're belittling women, and God forbid I'm not. I got 3 daughters, 3 adult women. I'm in my 30th year of marriage. So again, I am not trying to belittle women in any way. I'm invested in this. I've never had it in my life. I've never been a subject. I mean, my mom, that's another issue. My mom is certainly one of the reasons why I'm not a proponent of domestic corporal punishment. I'll say that much. She was a big reason why I wasn't. My dad never laid a hand on me. But at the time, I was 13, 14 years old when I got with him. But my mom, yeah, that was a different reality for me growing up. And it affected me in a lot of ways that I guess it wasn't until my 40s that I really kind of worked out. But like I said, from birth on the way up, I think we should be teaching men to value their person against anybody who tries to devalue or belittle who that person is.
And that's what people don't realize, Paul.
Yeah.
When you deal with belittling people or person, your loved one, your other half, you're breaking him down to the point that he doesn't know how to recover sometimes. If you're going to break him down, just let him loose or just don't say anything. Walk away. Sometimes it's better to walk away than just break the poor guy down. Trust me, I know from personal experience. Breaking him down, it's going to be a hard road to get back up. And I'm one of the few men who can say I came back from the deep end. And I came as a better man.
And I mean, just the fact that you're willing to get on again in these public forums and people can take your words and twist them or whatever, but you're certainly willing to share your experience in these spaces. I mean, that takes guts and courage in and of itself. Because again, a lot of men wouldn't do that, but certainly in the comments, you got people talk, a comment that was shared that again, this is why wise men need to in their circle. Because relying on a woman to bring you out of a tough situation ain't the way. So again, we need men who have experience. Men need support.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't make you less of a man when you can confess these things and again get the help that you need. And again, like anything else, you'll find that again you're not the only one. And I think that certainly goes a long way in terms of men being able to find the healing that they need. But I think ultimately it comes down to again the decision making that a lot of guys do. That has to be checked. That has to be examined. Like, why are you making the choices? Why are you choosing the type? And that's another thing too. A lot of times it's a type of woman that they're choosing that exhibits the same behavior. A lot of times in abuse is like you're picking the same type of person, male or female. Supreme Worthy, I literally have never in my life seen a man hit a woman. I think it's a myth at this point. Again, I would kind of go with the data on that one. But if there's over reporting on that, I think there's underreporting by the men who are certainly victims of it. So, but again, certainly I appreciate you commenting though.
There are a bunch of videos seeing men hitting women and women hitting men all over the internet.
BMU kids are way out of line now, and they are friends with the parents, and the teen take over the Yin's kids, beating up elders. Look, I'm not arguing the other way. But I'm not going to take BMU. I'm not going to take this binary logic. You talk about the parents being the friends of the kids and whatnot, or these ultra strict discipline where, again, you get beat for any reason. No, there's structure, there's discipline, there are consequences. I think you can do that in effective parenting. But it's like in our community, we've been given these options. And trust me, our prisons are full of kids who got beat. Or the reason the prison they haven't, no, we got, the violence or the spare the rod. The rod has been given to a lot of inmates. So I don't think that's the issue. But when you start to break down the structure of the family, the father in the life of the children, seeing consistency, holding them to expectations. When those things are going on, then yeah, you're going to have this sort of chaos. And unfortunately, that's being replicated from generation to generation. When is it going to stop? Mm-hmm. So again, on this one, yeah, I mean, we can say kids are way out of line, but the alternative is not going back to what we were doing 100 years ago. I refuse to accept that. And I think we need to be, again, a bit more nuanced about how we go about these things. But kids need structure. Kids need order. But kids need to see it in you. And when they're not seeing it, or the community that you choose to be a part of, then yeah, I mean, you're going to have some of this disorder. Craig says, again, it goes both ways, Paul. Again, no one is safe. Corporal punishment is not exclusively about spanking. Physical labor is corporal punishment too. I mean, certainly you had child. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, certainly you had child labor laws. Certainly back in the day. Well, you didn't have child labor laws back in the day, and women, certainly kids were working to the point of death. Or unless you're talking about, okay, if your discipline is okay, do 20. Okay, you spoke up, do 20 push-ups or something like that. I'm not sure what you necessarily mean by that one. If you want to,
I think if they're mouthing off to you, you like, okay, now go wash my car, little shithead.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I would still have that over just hitting, or just getting the belt and just whipping and putting welts on people. I'm just not of that. I'm just not of that ilk. Again, we need justice now. This is a huge issue in minority families where the father's unknown, beating on the sons.
That is a big thing going on lately too. I will admit that.
Plenty of videos of women smacking men around. Yeah, I mean, because they seem like they've been given license to do so. And I think, again, men, need to be taught that they need to protect themselves.
I think this came back years before. I think it was like before our grandparents was around. Because back in the day, if you remember, in the 30s, your woman talked back, you slapped her around. She stepped out of line, you slapped her. Dinner was on the table, you slapped her. Simple. That's how it was back in then.
Yeah.
Divorce wasn't an option. If you got divorced in the 30s, you were like something mentally wrong with you. So that transformed into what came in the early 90s and in early 2000s, like men, hit it. But women were doing it too all the time, but nobody's talked about it. Mm-hmm. Slowly coming out. It took us 30, 40 years to do this. 80 years, 70 years, whatever. It's coming out slowly.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, BME, you asked a question. I think I answered it. Now, again, the verbal part, again, that's dicier because, again, you don't have any sort of, a lot of times, legal recourse on that. But, again, someone putting their hands, again, let's start there. The verbal stuff, I mean, that's not to say that is not as damaging. I would say certainly, again, I wouldn't mess with a woman who certainly tried to abuse me verbally. That would certainly be a deal breaker. I'm not. What was that? And I'd be gone. Like, again, but are we teaching our sons not to tolerate it? And in not tolerating it, are we the ones that are doing it to our kids? My father, one of the things he would always say to me, and my brother said also to me when I was a teen, when I started living with my dad at 13, 14 years old. Because, again, I was book smart, but I was kind of nerdy, and I didn't have a lot of common sense. And the common phrase that came out of both my brother and my father was, boy, man, you ain't ish. If you didn't have books, you wouldn't be ish. I was told that throughout my early teenage years. And so imagine what that can do certainly to an individual as well. And so again, I'm not in position to leave. I mean, I left the mom who had mental issues to live with my dad, who had a very kind of old school, his idea of parenting was to belittle you. And then also to my brother. And it's interesting, my father would belittle my brother, and then my brother would then take it out on me. He belittled me as well. And so again, I'm saying, when is that going to stop? When are we going to create a culture or an environment where, again, what we say and what we do lines up with what we want from the people that we say we love? So again, go ahead.
Once told me, I can remember who, I think it was Anton, actually, now I think about it. Love should not hurt. And when love starting to hurt, that's what a problem is. It should be the most, when you realize you actually love the person, it should be the most happiest time in your life. You should be excited to see her. You should be, making plans every week to do something. You should do whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But love should not hurt.
Yeah.
People confuse that sometimes. I think love should hurt a little bit because you're trying to fight for her. Yeah, you should fight for your woman. I'm not denying that one bit.
Mm-hmm.
If my woman was up here right now, she'll tell you, I fight for her all the time. That's one thing she loves about me. I don't give up easily. It's kind of against my DNA, actually. Think about it. But
yeah,
love should not hurt.
Mm. Here we got it. Yeah. From We Need Justice Now. Again, this other part here. So we talk about verbal abuse, physical abuse, or whatever. But again, neglect or putting your kids into adult matters. Should children have a childhood that doesn't have all that drama in it, but are you the source of the drama that your kids are going through? I certainly agree. Again, not everybody should be a parent. And I tell anybody, men and women, if you don't want to be a parent, then do what it takes not to be one. But people having kids way too early or just not, and I'm not even talking about so much financial. I'm talking about, because again, we got a lot of people who are in Appalachia or whatever who barely make $50,000 in a household, still have kids and still have families. So I'm not going to put this, you need $100,000 a year in order to raise kids. I think that goes a little bit too far also in terms of this narrative that we've been hearing about the cost of raising children. If you talk about, they need to have Xbox and $200 Jordans and all these other benefits or whatever, or the nicest clothes or these brand labels or whatnot, then that takes some money. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a better kid, though. So I don't want the issue to be about money, but again, are they being nurtured? Are they being loved? Are they being talked to? Are they being listened to? Are we creating? That's what I mean by structure and environment. Structure and environment is not just what you can't do. Don't do this and don't do that. What can you do? Are you building an environment that helps them to develop? Are you talking to them? What are you saying? Or it's like, you can't want to talk, you just want to, like again, old school fathers back in the day, they weren't necessarily talking to you like that. Hey, let's sit down, let's have a conversation, let's go and grab a Sunday together and let's just talk. Now I've tried to do that for my girls. It's like I have date nights like with my daughters. Look, we're going out, just me and you. Talk about anything you want. Any beats that we have personally, anything that's going on. Pick a date or whatever. We go pick the spot you want to go to. Let's go one-on-one. I do that with each one of them. If they don't always take me up on it, or I have to remind them, hey, we haven't done this for a while. Let's go out. Back then, it was like, look, I just like that scene out of Fences, right? I'll provide your house on you. I put clothes on your back or whatever. What more do you want from me? That's not necessarily nurturing either, but we certainly got a lot of old OG fathers who were kind of like that from that old school. Your nurturing that you got from your mom if you got it at all. I got Anton. If parents aren't placing boundaries on their children from day one and being consistent with it, children will find ways around them. Douglas, I guess he's clarifying his point. Moving rocks from one side of the other to the other for 4 hours Wasn't that out of that Jackson movie? Not the recent Michael Jackson movie, but I remember there was a Michael Jackson movie from a few years ago where you had the father, Joe Jackson, was having one of the sons. He would have them move bricks like from one side of the yard to the other. And, he was like, that was his training ground to show him. It's like, look, if you want to spend the rest of your life moving bricks, if you don't listen to what I'm doing, this is what your life is going to be like. And so that was his kind of old school of training them. Yeah, I could certainly consider that certainly abusive, especially depending on the age of the certainly the age of the kid. Work certainly before the legal age. Okay, no, it wasn't nice. Absolutely. Being mute. I think verbal abuse is more is worse than the physical. I don't know, because oftentimes the physical abuse comes with verbal. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you're being told stuff verbally and getting the physical at the same time. So I don't, so again, it could be. I'm not denying that it isn't. Like I said, I took both. I took physical from my mom, and I took verbal from my dad. What was worse? I don't know. They were just both bad, though. So again, I would say pick your poison with that one.
Depends on the level. If the physical is worse than the verbal, if the verbal is like minor things, I always say the physical. If the physical is like a couple slaps here and there, and the verbal is like hours and hours on end, it really depends. You can't really pick one. It depends how the level is.
Yeah, like I said, I got both, and I remember both. Like I said, I would get like welts. I'm like 5-6 years old, like welts, like black and blue marks on my arms or my legs or whatever from the switch of the belt that my mom used. Like I said, my dad never hit me, but again, especially when he got some spirits, he would say anything. You dumb, you this, that, or you just stupid, or you whatever the the verbal beat down of the day was.
So the question for you, Paul, because you got both, how did you outcome that and become the man you are now?
Time, opportunity, and stacking some wins. I mean, like I was the first one in my family to graduate from a 4-year school, 4-year college university. Mm-hmm. I also got with some brothers. Shout out to 100 Black Men of Rutgers University for giving me an environment where I was around men that were interested in the development of men, mentally, spiritually, physically, and in all aspects, to think consciously as a black man. That environment certainly helped to nurture me. Getting developing a career, meeting my wife, having a family, because all that stuff that I was told when I was younger and kind of seeing where people at. Look, I love my dad. I love my brother. But I passed all of them. Or all those people who didn't think, the girls who thought I was too skinny back in high school. And if I look at these women now, it's like, well, what do you got now? Well, the guy you thought was so cool, the guy who you thought was so, was the man back then. What is he doing with his life at this point? But like I said, I was in my 40s before stuff started to kind of click. It's like, yeah, it's like you have been through a lot. And then also I think what really came to head was when I had to start taking care of my parents 10 years ago. Mm. Because I'm the youngest of the 5 of us. 2 of them were out of the state. And the others just weren't in a position. The brother who said I wasn't, this or that, he was in no position to take care of my dad. Because he could barely take care of himself. And so when I had to come in and I had to start doing things and figuring things out and whatnot, it was very stressful. I say this all the time. The reason why I'm bald is because I started losing my hair big time in that period. I posted a picture on my Facebook with my kids when they were babies still. And when I still had hair, okay, back then. Yeah, yeah. When I still had hair. But again, that 2016, 2017 period, that's when the hair just started just to stress. But at the same time, I kind of came out on the other side. And I started to realize that, yeah, I am that dude. that I did what my family prior to that never did do. Been married almost 30 years, got a great wife, kids, certainly they're functional adults. Still, they're still knuckleheads at times. There's still things I got to work out with them. They're not perfect. Respected in my community, respected in my church, respected in just other areas of my life. And so, yeah, it's just winning, succeeding one step at a time. But I always felt growing up that I was always last. I was the last guy picked when it came to when I was a kid. When you were picked for the basketball team on the court, 5-on-5 or whatever, I'll pick you. I was the last guy always picked. But now when it comes to certain initiatives, now I'm like one of the first people to go to. Not so much athletically, but just in life in general. What does Paul have to say about this or that or whatever? So it's about just winning. It's just about overcoming. It's just realizing that, again, what your life was, that I didn't have to stay there. Just keep your head down, keep working, and things just kind of materialize. But again, certainly meet my wife was a big deal. Because she wasn't nurturing. She wasn't one who was, going to use my past against me or what have you. She saw who I was and loves me for who I am. She doesn't always understand me. She's like, you're kind of weird how you think about things or whatever. But the more we've been married, the more she appreciates the person that I am and wouldn't change me for the world. And she'll say, look, you're that dude. And she poured into me and edified me and built me up. So again, it's the people who you choose. Like I said, the friends that I have from college, they're still great friends of mine now. And just changing your environment, changing your situation. So again, it's been a journey. It's been a journey for me, but it's one that I think I've come out pretty okay on the other side. Having taken the income from both of them in different ways. And it's interesting because in one thing my mom always told me was that I wasn't supposed to be here. Like my older siblings, each one of them was about a couple years apart. They weren't trying to even have me. I guess they were kind of having problems, but they had to slip up or whatever and had me. You know how that is. It's just we ain't together, but we just had a whatever, but they weren't. I wasn't even supposed to be here. But again, I was the one at the end of the day that I took care of both of them. I was the dude. I was the chief. I was the power of attorney. I handled their affairs. When everybody else was living their life and doing whatever, I was the guy who stepped up. And so when you start looking and start tallying that up, you're like, yeah, you've been balling this whole time. And so that matters. But if you stay in your or you internalize a lot of that, what's been said, then yeah, you can kind of go off the rails. I could have been a statistic. I could have been in a lot of different things. But then also my faith, I got stronger in that, and I started understanding who I was and whose I was. I think that made a big difference. Understanding that I was ultimately his. I wasn't anybody. Yeah, how I came here, I can't control. But I can certainly control things going forward from there. So again, I think all those things are important. BMU, the entitlements, crazy parents' advice has been watered down because of social media and everything the kids have access to today. Very, no question. But again, what borders and parameters, and also the community that you are surrounded with. Because I tell you one thing because all my girls, in fact, they just had a birthday party a couple weeks ago with a friend of theirs. They all kind of grew up together. Like there was like a network of us. There was a group. There was a community. I think that's important. In spite of social media and everything else that kids are being told. But go ahead, Peter.
So a while back, this kid called the cops on his parent because they took his phone away. And he goes to the cops. I know my rights, and she can't take that away. Like, actually, she could. You don't pay for it. It's not your property. It's technically your mom's property. The cop looked around, turned around, like, you need to stop listening to your buddies to give you some bad advice, bud. So yeah. So sometimes I feel like kids are in more control than the parents sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, we need justice now. Again, loving the parents who abuse you is another level. I was relieved when they passed. Forgiving them was necessary, but grateful for the freedom from having them no longer in my life. Yeah, you may have to come to that. Now, even with my mom, mom and dad, I kind of had to operate as like I was their advocate, but I wasn't their son, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like basically, because we never dealt with the parent issues, I couldn't treat them as parents. I kind of treated them as clients. Like I said, I was power of attorney for both of them. I took care of the health directives. I took care of the insurance and all that. Like that was something I could do from a business level. Like I said, you can't control who your parents are and all that kind of stuff. But and certainly with my faith and everything, I'm an honor your parents type of guy. I don't have to like them. I don't have to have these conversations. In fact, even during that time, like it wasn't like we were having these long conversations or trying to work on our relationship. It was all I knew was that they needed certain things to be done, and I was the only one that could do it. And I wasn't going to argue about, someone else should be doing it or another sibling should be doing it or whatever. It kind of fell on me, guess what, tag you it, you have to do it. But I definitely had to, as far as loving them, it wasn't like I had to take away some of the emotional attachment. And that allowed me to do the tasks that were required to take care of them. Despite what they said to me, despite what they did to me, when I put it in that space, and then at the same time realize that like my mom with the mental issues, you grow up and understand that one, she's not responsible for that. I mean, you develop just full as well. My mom had paranoid schizophrenia. Mm-hmm. You can't. That's not something people desire. So she was in a state where I had to understand this wasn't even her fault. And then the more I looked at my dad, just understanding the life that he came from. So a lot of this is also about perspective. He was certainly a child of his generation and of his era. And he had his own demons that he had to deal with. That I never had. My dad was a heavy drinker. I've never drank in my life. Because after seeing my dad in the conditions that he would oftentimes find himself in, it's like, I don't want that. And so I've never had a drink. So again, but treating them in those terms. This is what they need. Let's get it done. But I wasn't the one with the soft skills. If anybody of my other siblings, I would say, look, you provide the soft skills. Because I think my other siblings, they were better with that than I was. So you go and see mom on the weekends, you paint her nails, and you give her that time. I wasn't going to do that. We would go by and see my mom who lived in town. Sometimes I would take Doc with me, our dog. We'd be there for maybe 10, 15 minutes at a time. Hey, Mom, is everything okay or whatever? Here, she loved KFC. That was her favorite thing. She used to call it Kentucky Fried Chicken, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Kentucky. That was just her southern accent. Kentucky, bring me some Kentucky Fried Chicken. Fine. Bring the chicken. Hey, you good? Set her up. Everything's good. Talk to the doctor. Is she good? Everything's good. Okay, Mom, we'll see you next week, or we'll see you in a couple weeks. Boom, out.
You think that's why when she finally passed, it was a little easier for you to close that chapter in your life?
Well, actually, it's interesting you said it. There was something that happened very near the end of her life that changed my perspective a bit. Like I said, I kind of shut off a lot of my emotions. But one time I was in there and I was feeding, like she was, she had some surgeries or whatnot, and I was just feeding her. Like I was feeding her like a baby. Like, her diet had to be modified. She had this pureed food, and I'm just feeding her. And it was weird because as I'm feeding her, whatever weight or stress that I had on my back, it's like with every spoon that I was giving her, it was like a weight that was coming off. 10 pounds was coming off. 20 pounds was coming off. And I just felt liberated somehow. Like that was like the first times I felt like, okay, I finally overcame something, or that I didn't, because when I would see her sometimes there was like a tension kind of thing. It was like, look, just get in, do what we got to do, and let's get out. And I didn't feel that. It was like, but it was like a week or two before she passed. And so when she did die, I mean, yeah, I mean, the love was still there. But when I was operating in that space, I had to shut it off. And that's how I was able to get through that situation. But certainly, but I can certainly appreciate, again, we need justice now. Again, you do what you got to do to protect yourself. And I totally I totally understand that, but that's what I was able to so I think we have the same parents. Yeah, so yeah, but that's kind of how it that's kind of how it was. But it was like, but ultimately I was able to again, overcome a lot of things, but it was a precedent that I didn't want in my family. I wanted to break this cycle. So again, we weren't doing the belts. I mean, yeah, my wife, she may slap on the hand, yeah, maybe tap on the butt or something like that or whatever, but we just went another way with it. And I think we're better off for it. But certainly, as far as the abuse thing, I could not in good conscience raise my son to say, if you're a 5-year-old at the park on the swing set and a girl knocks you off the swing or something like that, push her back. I'm telling my kid right then and there that nobody has the right to disrespect you, not physically, not verbally, or what have you. Go into the places where you're respected, where you're honored. Don't take stuff that you don't have to. And so, and I hope I've kind of given that to my daughters. And I do understand I can get to a point where, again, I think the swing back on that is sometimes, again, everybody needs critique. Everybody needs accountability. Everybody needs correction. When a young person thinks that correction or someone checking you for your benefit, especially if it's coming from somebody who would give their lives for you, if they start to think that is, oh, you just hating on me, yeah, that's a problem. And so I get the dangers in, when you do too much, that any kind of pushback, like everybody, not all your feelings or emotions deserve to be validated. And I learned that especially when I was in college. Again, 100 black men at Rutgers University. Those guys really did a lot to really groom me in a lot of ways. We push back on the people all the time. Just because you said it didn't make it true, and you got the pushback. And so if you were going to make a point, you had to make sure that your points were researched and whatnot. That's one of the reasons why when I do these lives, why do you think I put this information up? Why do you think I research and put, sources and data and statistics out there? Because in any place that I'm at, I want to make sure, I want to be as factual as I can. Does all the information is correct? No, not always. But again, you want to raise the level of conversation that we're dealing. There's too much people dealing in facts. I mean, dealing in hearsay and just stories and myths and all these other things. Let's deal with the real that's out there.
Yeah. And
let's have an informed conversation, which is one of the reasons why the gray area exists.
And that's the problem, Paul. The people cannot have a civil conversation. They like to argue.
Mm-hmm.
Mankind loves to argue. But it's very few people on this planet, including yourself, I can have a civil conversation with about any topic.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are hard-headed, don't want to budge, and you know how that is. We know a few people ourselves personally.
Yeah. Yeah,
from
for sure.
Our group of friends, I mean, of course.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you got to, at the same time, even though those things may have happened to you, especially when you're younger, again, you're going to have to, because again, if you let that stuff consume you, and again, we need justice, again, that's a horrible way to go. On my biological mother's deathbed, she double flipped me off. I called for a chaplain and prayed for her and kept it moving. It was shocking when it happened, but I was relieved when it was over. Again, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally empathize with that situation, but it seems like, but at the same time, you did what was required. And this is also something that I always tell my kids. I'm always telling my wife, and ultimately I tell myself, you do what is required, not necessarily how you're feeling in the moment of the situation. If it needs to be done, if you're the only one that can do it, just do it. But you can spend hours, if not days or weeks or months, hemming and hawing and twisting yourself up in knots or whatever. Just do the deed. Make decisions fast, carry them out, finish it, and move on with stuff. And whether or not it's appreciated by the person that you're doing it for, you did your part. And that was another thing also. Like, it got to a point where, especially if nobody else was stepping up, so I'm going to do what I need to do. Now, if you got smoke with it, it's like, look, do you want to do this? So it got to a point, even with my siblings, nobody was like really pushing back on me. One, because again, I was making the right calls and the right decisions. But early on, everybody was trying to manage the situation from 2,000 miles away. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not even here. So let me do what I got to do. And again, I'll deal with the consequences later. Which is the earlier point where we're talking about male DV. Again, protect yourself at all times. Defend yourself at all times, regardless of who it is, but deal with the consequences later. But don't just be taking stuff from people and then dealing with the potentially lifelong consequence of that PTSD, of that stuff, and you wonder why you can't develop any kind of meaningful relationships later on because you haven't dealt with the stuff that was bothering you before. So I think that's, for me, I think that's really where it I think that's where it is for me. But we're definitely near the end of the show. I should have started the final thoughts a few minutes ago. But again, certainly we need justice. You guys' facial expressions. But appreciate you being here. Appreciate you being transparent. Again, sorry about, certainly, what you had to endure. But again, you're not the only one. A lot of us, we didn't choose our parents and what they did to us, what other people in our lives, what they did to us. But the only thing we can choose is what, the actions we choose to do in spite of what people do to us. I think that's what separates us from the animals, just reacting to things, that you can take actual action and choose another path for yourself. I think that's ultimately, where true contentment comes from. And if you're in a domestic situation that is violent, you do not have to take that. Get away from that. Protect yourself from that. And if you all want to go all the way back to the beginning, work on you a little bit and find out those things, those weaknesses. Why did you even choose that person when you knew that she had 3 kids from 3 different dudes or whatever the situation was? I mean, that's why a lot of times I don't have empathy for a lot of guys sometimes in these spaces. Because it's like, you're making these choices and then you're surprised when the choice doesn't necessarily go your way. Choose better, choose wiser. But ask yourself, why am I choosing? What am I choosing? And why am I still getting the same results? They say that's insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. They say that's what insanity is. But I see a lot of brothers just making choices, and it's like, I get to shake my head. It's like, nope, nope, nope. And again, I'll tell them. Now, again, will they listen to me or not? I don't know. I hope some do. But I see the same guys, you going back to the same issue, going back to that same woman. You know she's not good for you, but you going back to that same person because she knows how to stroke your ego. But she's bad for you. So I'll keep putting it out there and suggesting, and the guy says, yeah, you're right, I'm not going back to that woman. And then a few weeks later, you're back, you see the woman again. I'm like, what are we doing here?
He's going back in circle. Unfortunately.
Yeah. BMU, so I think I'm so dumb. Don't think I would do as choir because they didn't. They didn't. Who says you have to do anything? I don't owe them anything. And that's, again, that is that is, certainly something you have to decide in your own mind. Like I said, I'm just giving what I did or what works for me. I'm not saying that when I say it works for everybody, but if I wanted peace in my soul, I needed to do that, and so that works for me. So I appreciate it. Again, you make peace with your choices, and if required to, then great, or do not do it. Absolutely. If you appreciate that, yes, absolutely. Certainly hit the subscribe. Also consider becoming a member, a subscriber to the Black Men Unfiltered Network and the Sparta HQ Network. Again, different platforms. The Gray Area is a common show we share on both platforms, but each channel has its own content. So definitely go through and consider becoming a subscriber. Certainly to both channels. Certainly, we appreciate the support, and more so, just looking at again the streamer traffic, the chat that was very lively tonight, and we figured it would be just given the topic that we were dealing with. Certainly, the people, certainly you're very welcome, and please come back and see us. Certainly appreciate that, and. So most men are not healed enough to marry their mothers. Absolutely, that might be another show and topic altogether. But again, I got a good one. Like I said, I was very fortunate, and again, I give credit to God to that for having the right woman. And it's weird because again, we had our rough patches early on, but it's interesting with her. What I thought a lot of her things that annoyed me about her actually were things I started to value as the longer we were married. Her stability, her kind of matter-of-factness and whatnot, not getting overly emotional over certain things. Those were things I appreciated, especially when things got stressful. Her kind of staying even keel. Although nowadays, certainly with our older daughters or whatnot, that's becoming an issue. So again, even she has limits, especially when you're dealing with these young girls. 100%. But again, we want to thank you guys for being with us tonight. Again, make sure you hit the like button as you leave the show. And I can't tell you enough how we appreciate, you guys could be spending your Sundays any other time, but you choose to spend your Sundays with us. We all know that people got work tomorrow and everything. And so, again, we just appreciate you hanging out with us. Stay tuned to us certainly next week for another show. And we'll certainly release out what that show is going to be shortly. And but Pete, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
I think I said enough tonight.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you guys for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless. And we will see you next time. Good night.